Hello there, Qckslvrslash here, and today we have Operation Killer Whale. It's another week, which means another new operation, and I've had a lot of fun with this one just because it's different. The map is unique, and it's kind of reverse of the first week's mission or operation, where you're trying to defend your base. In this one, you're trying to absolutely wreck an enemy base. Now, having played through a couple times just to see what different things work, I would recommend bringing something like a Bagioni, Glissonier, de Grasse, one of those faster cruisers, and just have them go solo up to the north, because there's a pair of forts about here, and then all down this shore, kind of from here south, are ground installations that you have to destroy, like ammunition depots, hangars, fuel depots, that kind of thing. And sending one of those fast cruisers, they can easily clean through all of that in a hurry, while the rest of your team kind of just goes straight south to deal with the force that spawns. Now, in this one, it's not what happens, because this replay is just one of the earlier replays. I decided to hop into the Arizona to give it a try, and the ship's tanky enough. The one downside, it is slow, and that can hurt you towards the end of this, and you'll see why for those of you who haven't played through this operation. For those of you that have, the end of the battle can get a little tricky. I've watched an entire team just disintegrate trying to get to the evacuation. So the general way this mission goes down is you can see the primary tasks: destroy all the ships at the base, secondaries, get all the forts and onshore facilities, and destroy all the support ships. So the support ships spawn in here, like I said, facilities all around here. The forts are kind of spread out, and there are two up in the north that someone's got to go get, which is why I'd recommend someone come in a fast cruiser. Now, one of the other things that's going to come in really handy is a competent carrier captain, and ideally the Ryuju in the strike format. You really don't have to deal with a whole lot of enemy aircraft in this one, so the one fighter group is more than enough. The extra strike package is really useful, because what happens in this one a lot is as the ships spawn in, they're pretty much stopped stationary, ripe for the picking. And in fact, later you get, I believe it's a Kaiser and a Hosho, if my memory serves me right, that spawn in port and do not move. Having a strike carrier just means those two ships are just erased. No one has to sail down there and deal with them. You can just get rid of them. And you can see what our team's kind of done here. They're streaming right through the gap down to the south, and I kind of went, well, hey, we've got to get these forts up to the north. I expected one of the cruisers to go do it, and they just didn't. So Savea has said he will, but because of where I am, I decide just to get my rudder over enough to try to throw, a helping hand with a couple long-range shots. And granted, I would be much better served probably facing off against these guys in the south, but we will get there. And one of the other pieces of advice, beyond the guy who kind of just goes charging up around the north, there's no mad dash to get in and engage. That said, you can't sit back and do nothing. We had an entire team try to camp outside this thing while I was up here dealing with stuff. I was in fighting the Kaiser before they even tried to sail in, which I found a little odd, but it is what it is. And now that the Kaiser is spawned, you can see exactly where he is. That's where I've had him spawn every game so far, and it never sails anywhere, which means free picking for your CV. The other reason a good CV is, a reasonable choice on this one. A lot of the battleships that spawn in here are lower tier, so they're not too hard to just get in and get a strike on. You're not going to lose your aircraft. One of the other things I would advise, unlike I did there, is all these depots, warehouses, everything, fire HE at. I played a game of my DeGrasse. Basically, a single set of 3 shells was enough to destroy every single ground facility. So you just break the turrets up and, you know, back to back to back, there goes 3 more spots. So as Sevilla sails to the north, I'm kind of just in the middle of the map. I'm not helping the guys to the south too much, but, you know, it is what it is. They kind of went charging in alone. One thing while I think about it too, if you're playing a CV, you have to move. Because basically what happens once you deal with the port is ships just start spawning in waves out here. One of your secondary tasks that you will get after you get the new primary task of evacuate is deal with the first 2 waves. This doesn't mean you have to sink every single ship. And this is really why it's important to listen to that, you know, AI voice that tells you what's happening, because he calls out what wave it is, so you can see, you know, scouting report, first wave, inbound, and the ships momentarily pop up. Well, when you see them pop up, remember what it is, because I've watched one group basically try to fight through the entirety of, as far as I know, endlessly spawning waves, not knowing what ship they have to actually sink. So paying attention to who spawns and knowing that you only have to deal with the first 2 waves really helps you out. Now, so far, this match hasn't been too exciting from my point, but a number of the games in this aren't. Like, the times I've gone up where Sevilla is to the north to deal with the forts and the ground facilities up there, you know, you're doing lots of damage, you're sinking things, like, you're having fun, but it's not challenging. And as far as difficulty, I put this somewhere between week 1's and week 3, or sorry, week 2. Last week's, week number 2, that, you know, go rescue fleet and escort them was pretty easy. And I think that really came down to how much it would suck if the AI were even slightly more difficult, or your AI on those supply ships made a mistake. Trying to get 5 stars would just be an absolute slog if they're always running into each other. So I think it almost unintentionally became a little easier just so people didn't get frustrated with it. Now this one, it's not too difficult, but it is easy to mess up if you've got a team of numpties. And really just patience, slowly progressing through everything as a group really does deal with it. And you can see where everything has spawned now, and you can see there is the first support wave or reinforcement wave, and it spawned right at the north next to Sevilla. It's a Kohlberg in this case, which will be easy enough for him to deal with. But listening to that scouting report and seeing what the ship is, kind of important to actually getting through this. You know, destroying all the forts, getting all the depots, all the ships, that's all pretty simple, low-hanging fruit. Really, the only thing you have to do is pay attention to who those ships are when they spawn, and getting through the rest of the secondaries is a pretty straightforward task. Now you can see on the map, over in Delta 1 is our retreat point. There's a big circle. Half your surviving ships have to get in there. And that's why having quicker ships could become important. Now I'm not all that far forward, but I've spent almost 10 minutes to get to this position. Now I have to spend the rest of the battle just trying to get back to that stupid evacuation point. Now, I don't necessarily have to get there. In this case, we've got 5 remaining operational ships. 3 of us have to get there. It is important that you don't go there until you've dealt with those secondary tasks if you want to deal with them. Because the second 3 ships at this point enter that circle, it's game over, you complete the primary task, and you have what you have done. Thankfully, or unthankfully, it's not going to be a problem, because this game is pretty much going to end with only my division alive, Goomba, Sevilla, and myself. And yes, Goomba does indeed survive, although maybe could have gotten himself into trouble. You can see he did sail in here, and that's important. It keeps the CV alive. He shouldn't be leading the charge back out, and that's essentially what happens here momentarily, just because the Ryujo is quicker than the Arizona. I am not a fast ship, and he's already out in front of me, and you'll see what happens. DD probably could have taken a run on him. Thankfully, he does get turning his rudder, and things are good. So there is one of the two carriers that we still have to destroy, and there's the second wave. So once again, a Kaiser is now spawned up in Alpha 8, and we have to kill that if we want to get this. Now the other reinforcements are this Wakatake, and there's a V-25 somewhere. But those are the only 4 ships that we have to kill. Thankfully, Savea is still up to the north, so he gets himself turning around to deal with that threat. Meantime, I'm just trying to finish the host show off and shoot whatever I can. I really didn't have a ton of fun in the Arizona just because it is a slow ship. I felt like I spent this whole match really trying to just get where I needed to be and not as much time doing the damage that I really should have been doing. But my choice to bring a battleship will pay off in the end. And the reason is, there aren't just 2 reinforcement groups. As I said earlier, it seems like they're pretty much infinite. You know, we had a group spawn right as the match was ending. I'm tempted to see it through to the end of the timer, see how many actually potentially spawn. But it's more than 2, and you can get yourself into trouble with the ships that spawn. And you can see our Cleveland's going back through the gut, you know, basically heading for the reinforcement. And this could be a problem if there were only 4 of us left. Say Savea, myself, or Goomba were dead and they made it to that cap, well, now we haven't gotten the 5 stars. And really the difficult, like I've said a couple times now, the only difficult part of this one is following the instructions, reading what you have to do, and knowing what that entails. And once again, strike carrier really comes into its own here. When you've got a Kaiser or whatever spawns way away from wherever your fleet is, having a carrier to be able to just send planes up to deal with it, super useful. Now I am going to be able to take a couple shots, and Savea is turned around, ready to mano a mano at Kaiser, but it's not going to be needed. Between the 3 of us, we are going to finish him off, and then it's just continue sailing for the extraction. And here's wave number 3. And you can kind of see how this could get out of hand if you're too aggressive early on and you lose a whole bunch of hit points to start the battle out. You really don't have the necessary hit points to make it to extraction. And that's where I've seen teams evaporate, is, you know, they go charging in, they're like, haha, we've killed everything in port, we're done all the primary and secondary tasks. And then the sort of second half of the mission starts, and they're like, oh. And everyone just starts sailing straight for the thing, kind of like our Clevelands did here. And, well, we've already lost one of the Clevelands, and the other doesn't exactly have a lot of hit points. Thankfully, Goomba's on pretty much full health. I've burnt a bunch, but it doesn't matter too much. I absolutely waste my damage control there. I wasn't paying attention. Finally went, oh, 2 fires, I better put those out. And use it right as they go out. And this made me laugh so hard, and you'll see why. The Tenryu, sure, driving into the Zuiho there. And I get some good damage. But the Tenryu is what's going to kill the Zuiho. Even Abe I have team-killing scum. And that, I think, made me laugh harder than anything. So you can see there, Zuiho is on fire. It's burning down, but the Tenryu is still just grinding up against its side, ticking away those hit points. And there it goes. Tenryu killed the Zuiho. So the bots can team kill. They do that. I was going to say they are that bad, but you know, they're just that well programmed. They're that accurate to real human life that the problems you have in random battles carry through to these operations. Now, with that Kaiser dead, the two destroyers we faced earlier, now we just have to get to this extraction. And I'm still like 12 kilometers back, and we're down to 4 minutes. So I pretty much have to sail in a straight line. You can see the green ring that marks the edge of it. Pretty much where our Cleveland died. He made the sprint, not really thinking through, like, what's he going to do once he's there? He's not half the operational ships. Thankfully, we're all in good health. I'm tanking through this damage pretty well. Goomba gets a great drop there, kills the V-170, so just keep on pushing. Savea is bringing up the rear, and we don't need him. If Goomba and I can get into this, it ends. So he kind of becomes cannon fodder here, and really starts tanking a lot of damage. The Kaiser's focusing on me for now, but you know, the Dunkirk side-on isn't exactly the strongest ship, and he will get hurt. And it's here I'm thinking, okay, get rid of this Königsberg, home free. There's no possibility that anything else could be spawning, and that's, you know, where I was wrong. I thought, okay, maybe a third wave spawns, but no, we get another one. And why that sucks, because say we have a few more ships left and they're way back, well, pretty much at the end of this game, I have a destroyer spawn point blank range from me. And if you're beat up and just thinking, okay, I'm going to get to the extraction point, I'm going to get myself out, the team will get here eventually, it doesn't work, because you're going to have ships spawn on top of you, they'll kill you, and it's over. So when you are going to the extraction, try to do it as a group. Almost like we are. We've got Goomba kind of to the rear as far as where the enemies are. He's protected, they're all focusing on us, and we've just got to make it in there, and it's all done. Meantime, doesn't mean I can't beat up on a Kaiser. And this one wasn't too bad. Interestingly enough, this was the first try at it. And like I said, I've done it a number of times just to try a couple other combinations of ships. I really do think a fast cruiser to go to the north works best. But beyond that, just preserve your health, play smart, and you can win.
And honestly, this one's not too difficult if you bring a division of competent friends who know what they're doing. The only thing that can make getting 5 stars on this hard is not knowing what to do, trying to end the game too early by someone running to the circle, or a bunch of randoms who just throw the game. And I've had that happen a couple times, and it's frustrating because you watch it and you're like, I've already done this. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, come on, don't do that. And then they all just die. And that's what makes it hard. And you can see the stats in this one, 390 or 29,000, got the starfish, 111,000 damage, but the kills and damage don't mean a ton in this since you're not fighting all that many ships. It's really about just chewing through the ground installations, killing the couple ships that do spawn, and then getting your booty out of the match. Anyways, I hope this video helps anyone who plans on getting this one done this week. If it does, please consider giving it a thumbs up or subscribing. And as always, I'm Qckslvrslash, and I'll have another one for you all later.